Welcome to the third edition of EHO Knows, the podcast for environmental health officers. And today we've got a doozy about the Pied Piper incident. So here we are doing the Pied Piper edition with Max Payne. So welcome, Max. It's great to have you here.
Thanks, Shane. No, it's fantastic to be here. I've always been interested in. There's always been talks around kind of my colleagues and people in the office around if you got together all the stories of what environmental health officers get up to, it'd make a great book. But I mean, a podcast is not too bad either.
Yeah. So, we'll get into the Pied Piper incident in a minute. But before we talk about that, tell us a little bit about yourself. Who is Max Payne?
So I'm currently the team leader of environmental health at Northern Beaches Council. I've done a stint at the Ministry of Health in the Environmental Health Regulation Unit as a secondment, and was formerly employed as a trainee and a graduate at the Hillshire Council as an environmental health officer. Father of two, lovely wife. I live on the beaches where I work. That's kind of me. I manage kind of a team in the south area of the Northern Beaches Council, so that's kind of the Manly Curl wards, which is quite kind of urbanly dense, and so lots of interesting stuff comes up.
Yeah. Okay. Max Payne.
Yep.
Growing up with Max Payne as a name, what was it like?
Yeah, so definitely a lot of comments through childhood. I think the first game came out in 2003, which I would have been in year one or something. I was quite young, but yeah, it's kind of one of those things now where it's you still get comments about it, members of the public, just people kind of in the office, and I find it just a good icebreaker. It kind of lightens the mood. Start talking about something fun and jovial, then you get into the serious issues.
So let's talk about the Pied Piper incident. This happened when you were a trainee, and
Yeah.
so how many years into your career at that stage?
I'd be near the end of my first year when it happened as a trainee. Yeah, so quite green.
And it all started with someone making a complaint about rats. So what was the complaint?
So we had an employee of a business that raised a request with us around the conditions within a food premise. They had tried to resolve the issue with their management and had almost no response to the issues. So they kind of felt that it was their obligation to report that to what they saw as the authorities, which was us. It's unbelievable that no one reported it until then.
Yes. Okay. So, we'll come back to the whistleblowing aspect of it in a minute. So you've got this complaint now. What makes this story so, awesome or frightening is where it was at. So we're not going to name businesses or the location, but this was at a large shopping centre.
A very large shopping centre, many hundreds of businesses within multiple levels, stories, basements, and areas where food businesses were within the centre. So quite large.
Okay. You've got the complaint, you rock up. What happens?
Yep. So I went out with my senior. I spent a lot of time with my senior kind of learning the ropes. Shout out to Mitikor Simic. He kind of took me out saying, "Oh, this could be a great learning experience, trainee. You need to kind of figure out what's going on, investigate these kind of issues because it's a bit different to like a routine inspection. You're looking for a very specific issue." The business was due for their routine inspection, coincidentally. So we were just tackling it as a complaint/routine inspection. We went around, introduced ourselves. At the start, we didn't didn't let them know that we were there on the basis of a complaint. We're just kind of going to naturally let the inspection unfold, and we'd bring it up if we needed to kind of later on down the track. There's no point creating bad blood right from the start. So we went around in the food business, looked kind of all your standard stuff, your hand wash basins, your cleaning, how they're preparing food, how they're managing their risk, and all of that was like reasonably okay. We then kind of got to the stage where like, okay, well, do you have a storage area? Really like to see it, which was the basis of the complaint. It was that there was rats within a storage area, and that the employee had brought the issue to the manager's attention. Nothing had really been done. So that's kind of where we wanted to get and see kind of what was going on down there.
So you had the benefit. Sorry, you had the benefit that, as far as the customer was concerned, it was just a routine visit, and so
Yeah.
they did. They had their normal guards up, as
Yep.
opposed to, hey, we've had a complaint, and
Yeah.
they're instantly on the defensive.
Exactly, and that's exactly how I do it now. I would only let a business know that we had a complaint if they absolutely need to, or if it's come to the issue has come to light.
Okay, so you asked, do you have any storage areas?
Yep.
They surely must know that you're about to go look at the storage areas, and there's just crap everywhere.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
so what did they say?
Yeah, no, so they said no kind of indication of anything being wrong. They just said, yep, we've got a storage area downstairs. We'll take you down. So they took us to a service elevator, which kind of led to the subterranean kind of section of the center. It was kind of as soon as you got down there, you could kind of see that there was multiple storage areas. There was a loading dock on the left, where there was like a bin area and where deliveries would come. The kind of fit out was essentially concrete floors. You had some Besser block kind of short walls, and then mostly cages with hurricane fencing around them. There was kind of like a doorway that led into the kind of the storage areas. We were only specifically looking at this business's storage area to start with, but as soon as you walked through that doorway, you started getting that like ratty ammonia smell. So you kind of already know that like something's going on. We got into the storage cage, had a look around. All things considered, it was relatively clean, but we could see that there was evidence of rat droppings under the shelves. There was some boxes that had been gnawed. And yeah, you could see that there was smear marks around the high traffic areas on the entryways and exits, and there were some areas where there was cans that had you could see the kind of the rat urine kind of going across it, which is exactly what we're looking for. It was just like, yeah, there's obviously an issue here, and there's obviously rats, and there's obviously a number of other businesses that are directly surrounding this that are impacted by this. So they're kind of.
So was this the store manager that was bringing you down, or who were you with?
I think it was just a shift manager. It definitely wasn't the owner. It was just the person that was in charge that was.
So yeah, it's not the store manager. So it's the shift manager. So does that mean you've got a degree of apathy of this is it? It's not
Yeah,
my business.
yeah.
And so he's just brought you in
Tracked
because
us
in the back of
around.
my mind you'd be going, wait a minute, it's a rat infested dump. Why would
Yep.
you be going, oh yeah, here it is?
Yeah. Well, you see it a bit. It's kind of like that people won't say anything until you point it out or find out. They won't go, oh, just so you know, we've got a huge rat infestation. It's really up to your detective skills to call out what's wrong and what needs to be done to rectify it. I guess that's kind of the role of an EHO. It's putting your investigator hat, looking at the evidence, and then applying a standard to say, hey, this is not on. This is what you need to do to fix it, and this is how long you have to do that.
Okay, so
But yeah,
now you're doing the call out here. So you walk in, there's rat feces everywhere. There's trails of urine. There's nibbly bits.
yeah, it's essentially that. They go, oh, yep, no, we're on it. We understand the issues. We're doing X, Y, Z to resolve it, but we haven't had much luck. It was all the yep, we're on it. We'll get it resolved. They're kind of trying to show that they've been somewhat proactive, but probably not enough. And they'd been doing their own pest control, which is, I mean, all the kind of right stuff, but probably not enough. I mean, realistically, the place where they were storing things was probably not fit for purpose in its current state based on the level of infestation. So they really should have been looking at kind of incorporating the existing premise upstairs into a kind of a storage solution, or at least kind of getting some really robust storage containers to containerize their goods. And had started, but it was kind of like a very softly, slowly approach, rather than kind of the response that you'd be expecting for such a large outbreak and risk.
Okay, so this is where the story then really starts to take off, because we've gone from a single complaint by an employee about this place. You've gone in and you've now seen actually they've got a problem and they're trying to deal with it, whether or not they are or not. But but the truth is that it's a facility that's just not fit for purpose.
Correct.
And they're basically just trying to stop a tsunami now. So
Pandora's box opens. So obviously we could see that there's a number of other businesses that are affected. They're not all in isolation. So rats are going to very easily get through any kind of hurricane fencing. So we changed our tact. We're going, right, we've dealt with you. These are the things that you need to do. Get started. We're going to go over and start having a look at these other businesses and see what's wrong. So as we kind of get out of the storage cage for this restaurant, we then walk outside, and it's clear that you can kind of see just from outside that the other cages are affected, like you'd expect. The other thing, which I didn't say before, which we kind of became really obvious to us when we moved from this singular cage, is that the rear of this whole section was just bare earth. So it was literally in the subterranean basement section of this center. So it had these kind of Besser block walls, and then the fencing, and then right behind it was just dirt, just mounds of dirt. So we kind of tag team, myself and the senior. I'm going up a lot, talking to the businesses, saying, "Hey, we've got an issue. We want to have a look at your storage area. Come down with me."
So now you're going up and down and bringing more and more
up and down, bringing people up and down, kind of as we move through, kind of in the logical progression as you would through these storage cages. So within the whole complex as a whole, there was an Italian restaurant, there was a Greek restaurant, there was a Yamcha, a Thai restaurant. So we're kind of working through each of those businesses and basically saying the same issues. You've got gnawing of boxes, you've got feces, you've got smear marks, you've got a lot of them had the urine tracks over cans, and a lot of the businesses were like, "Oh, I didn't realize it was this bad." I don't know how you couldn't know that something's wrong. So I don't know whether that's kind of an excuse, but yeah. But essentially, when we're there directing people what to do, they're getting on with it. And the message that we were giving is that if it's contaminated, you need to chuck it, just based on the conditions. Or you can take the risk upon yourself and clean and sanitize that product. But here's what's the risk associated with rat urine, which is the leptospirosis. So yeah, a lot of cleaning, a lot of kind of containerizing goods. A lot of the shops were then moving stock up into their premise, which was good. And yeah, it's just a hive of activity. At some point, we kind of goes, well, given kind of that we're engaging with all these businesses, and it seems like it's a broader issue that can't just be managed by each individual business. We really need to get center management involved. And so I scurried off over to the head office and found the people that were important that needed to be there, and brought them down.
This is where you have the funny games, though. You couldn't immediately find them; they weren't available.
No. So essentially, we went up to, I went up there, introduced myself as you do, said, "Hey, we've got this issue. I'd like to meet with people around this issue and meet them on site to show them what's going on. We're working with all of these businesses at the moment, but I need your support." But yeah, they weren't immediately available, but they did eventually come down, kind of when we were getting to the last cage. But I'll get onto that a little bit later because that's the interesting bit of the story. So Greek restaurant was next. After that, there was the Thai restaurant. The Thai restaurant was quite interesting. While we had been doing our stuff with the other restaurants, they had a meat delivery. The delivery driver had decided that they would just leave the delivery in the downstairs storage area, and it was boxes and boxes of meat. And so when we get to the Thai restaurant, we could see that there were rats like trying to get into the boxes of meat, like around it. When we got them downstairs, this was definitely the second worst place. We found that there was a cool room that they had built inside this kind of subterranean lair, and within that cool room, they had this whole like meat processing area that they had set up. So they were getting this meat delivered, and the delivery drivers just obviously left it unrefrigerated, just out in the middle of the storage cage. But they were processing it down there, like into your smaller cuts of meat that you use for your stir fries and the like, within this kind of downstairs cool room. They had also this freezer, oh no, fridge. It was like a small fridge, and I remember opening it, and just like the stench of rancid meat. It was just like, when like blood goes off. It was just covered in, like, caked in blood in this kind of small kind of fridge, and the smell that came off it was just revolting. So it was just totally uncontained and unsuitable for food preparation. So they had that issue as well. The rats had worked their way into these boxes by the time we got there, because there was some difficulty in getting them to come down because they didn't actually start operating until the evening. I didn't mention before, but we started this whole process at about like 11, but we wanted to do this business before the lunch rush. But we were there until like midnight. It was a long, long stretch. And so we were only able to get them down as we got closer to 5 and they were arriving to get ready for service,
So
which is
we've now
why,
got meat, potentially hazardous food that's been left
yep,
out for, from their point of view, they've got absolutely no idea. It could have been delivered at 9 a.m. or
yeah,
whatever.
who knows? Who
Uh,
knows?
And then on top of that, they're using their cool room as a manufacturing plant effectively. And
Yep.
um, so does that mean on previous inspections, it would have just been a case of just assuming that downstairs is a cool room, show us your
Yeah.
records, no need
So
to necessarily inspect it? Or
Yeah, so I think from this one, the previous inspectors weren't aware or weren't told of their storage area downstairs, whether or not they hadn't inquired enough or whether or not they had tried to conceal that fact, I don't know. But it definitely hadn't been looked at before, by
yes,
us, because we would have said that's not on.
yes.
Uh, yeah, so yeah, it was starting to get pretty bad by that stage. We then from there, so again, we told them what you need to do, how you need to control it as much as you can, and that we'll talk to you later about your cool room. But we told them you need to get rid of this meat. It's contaminated. It's been out there for this long. These are the risks. and they with a bit of moaning, they decided that it was in their best interest to dispose of that meat, and that they would seek a compensation from the delivery company or the butcher that supplied it. Because I mean, they should be accepting goods and checking temperature and putting it away appropriately rather than it being
Yes.
left out. So we work our way to the Yamcha premise at this stage. When I walked in through the door for the Yamcha place, it was like being punched in the face with ammonia. Like if you've ever had like that strong ammonia smell, it's really quite aggressive. This place was by far the worst. It was in total disrepair. There was stuff stored everywhere. There was boxes stored around that had dead rats hanging out of them, like literally hanging out of the box. There was
So
feces,
these are rats
urine,
that have
you
just
name it.
died happy.
The rats would have been very happy in this storage area. The Yamcha place was the furthest in. It was the deepest in, and from it you could get a really good look at the kind of rear earth mound. And so when we shine our torches over this earth mound, there is hundreds and hundreds of rat warrens, and there's rats running everywhere. I've never seen so many rats in my life. Like, I couldn't even hazard a guess at how many. There'd be hundreds, literally hundreds of rats, kind of living in this interconnected rat warren, rear earth mound thing, which is like just left over from the design of the center, I guess. It's really in the guts of the shopping center at this stage. At this stage, we're saying to the same thing to the food business: you need to get rid of everything, because it was by far the worst contaminated. The tins had a lot of urine over them, a lot of feces over them as well. But while we were there, the thing that strikes me the most is that staff were just coming and going, like acting like it was just business as usual. Like they would come in grabbing things, like it was like almost like it wasn't happening. It was just bizarre.
So
But
in hindsight, at what stage could you have called it and just said, look, no staff are to come down here, no
yeah,
food is to go back out?
it was really hard because we had multiple businesses and it was just me and the senior, and so we'd given kind of our directions and we had said what needs to be done, but you only have so much control over the area. And that's why we really wanted center management in to kind of help us. We'd alerted the coordinator of the issues, and they hadn't come probably until it like it would have been like 8 o'clock or something by that stage. So we were well into it. But at this stage, center management finally decided to turn up. We got kind of the line of they were obviously very executive in their suits and ties. There would have been about 3 or 4 of them. They come down and we're kind of showing them all of the issues that we're experiencing and what's happening, and that we need your help to resolve this. And you're going to need to do something as well, because the rear area needs some serious pest control. So we're working them all the way through, showing them each of the premise and all of the issues, and we get to the Yamcha place. And one of the guys, through the whole time, it's just been kind of very like still, quite shocked, alarmed. But he was white, like he was like a ghost, like a sheet. We're kind of walking him in through the premise, showing the rear storage area, showing him the issues, seeing the rat hanging out of the box, and he just looks unwell. And we're then saying, oh, we need to go talk to all of these businesses and say, basically reiterate the message. We would really appreciate it if there could be like a skip or something, so businesses can chuck out their goods. And it comes out kind of while we're talking to him, like, we just ate here for lunch. Like, With the whole like executive has just eaten out at this yum cha place for lunch, and he's like, I can't believe it. Like they just had no idea of what was going on, and they were clearly in shock. We kind of had the round table with all the businesses and the exec around exactly what the businesses need to do. They rendered the support that we needed of them, which was great. And then they then take us. We then say, right, is there a way to access this like rear dirt mound? And there was, but it was quite difficult to get there. But we made our way to this rear earth mound that was kind of full of the warrens, and there was like there was a stray cat there, just like catching rats. It was happy as Larry. There was it's down where they stored all their grease traps for a lot of the food businesses, so it didn't smell great. Um, and there's just rats running everywhere. Like usually rats don't come out, but there was a lot of activity, so you wouldn't expect them to be as present, but they were just everywhere. They were like running in between warrens, running along the walls. They're just coming out of these, poking their noses out of the warrens. But yeah, they did engage a pest control company, and they did a full kind of. It was getting very late at this stage, and most of the businesses had kind of done what they needed to kind of control the incident as best as they could. And so we called it a night. We went home, and then first thing in the morning, we go straight back out there to kind of check up on what's going on. We go down to the area, and we can see a lot of things have been thrown out, which is good, or were containerized or were managed within each of the respective businesses. We look at the skip, and an employee of the Yum Cha place, who we've been talking to throughout the night, had a shopping trolley that he was collecting stuff out of the skip and putting it into this shopping trolley so that he could take it back upstairs. And we just said, no, you can't do that. This is for disposal. We then went up with him into the business, and he had several other shopping trolleys that he had already brought back upstairs,
Oh,
just full of just like these tins that had like feces and urine over the top of them. And we're just like, you can't do this. The manager was very apologetic and was saying, "Oh, the employees acted on his own in doing this." But yeah, we got everything back into the skip and
so did you
disposed of.
call BS, or is it likely to be the case?
Maybe like there was definitely English was a barrier. We used as many kind of as much Google Translate as we could to kind of communicate to him.
But at the end of the day, the buck stops with the manager.
Yes, yeah, 100%. Everyone in every business would have known what was going on. It was very clear that there was an issue and that there was activity, even if you didn't have like an understanding of like what to look for. It was clear that there was pests there. You could see them, you could smell them, you could see the droppings, you could see the gnawing. Everyone would equally know that something was not right. And essentially little to nothing was done by each of the businesses, which kind of essentially created a huge pantry for these rats.
Just to take a snapshot as to where we are and what the problem is, we've got center manager. Oh, sorry, the building itself was not fit for purpose. It had
100%. That was the issue number one. So so if you look at rodents, habitat, number one. They had habitat where they could live. Number two is they're a food source, because the built form of each of those storage cages was not suitable for a food premise. You could put anything else in there. I don't know, you can put your boxes of clothes or whatever, but it was not suitable for a food premise.
But even if you put boxes of clothes, the rats would still gnaw on the boxes. They would still pee all over the clothing in it, and you still got a contamination issue. But
totally.
So you've got dirt, you've got rats, and now you've got a food source. Mesh fence. So there's no barrier
access,
at all.
no barrier at all to entry. Very easy for them to get around. very easy for them to get to their habitat. So you've got food, habitat, and it was hot down there. So it's just a perfect environment for a rat.
Okay.
Like a rat would have just been in paradise.
Yeah. So the building in the first place totally not for fit for purpose, and that's
Yep.
on the
Sewer
building
management.
owner. And then, but on top of that, you've then got all these restaurants that
Mm.
are storing food in a place that they've been told, hey, you've got this storage area,
Yeah.
but it's not fit for purpose. Now, whether or
Mm.
not they know it is they can take that defence. But
Yep.
then they've got rats. They can see rats. They can smell rats. They can, there's rat droppings. There's urine trails and all that sort of
Yep.
stuff. So any of the owners could have turned around to management and said, "Hey, you've got a problem here."
Yep.
But it sounds like some of them did, but they all
Mm.
put up with it and just
Yeah.
said, "This is how it is."
Yeah. This
Uh,
is how it is. This is okay.
and then on
And it
top of that,
wasn't.
you've got staff who are not only using it day in and day out, but are
Yep.
prepared to use it while you're inspecting it and saying
Yeah.
this is not good enough, and they can still come in. And then you've got staff who are then prepared to go back down and take stuff out of the garbage bins to
Yep.
take it back up and just turn a
Yep.
blind eye. So
Yep.
buildings not fit, businesses are neglecting their job, staff are happy to just ignore it.
Yep.
And then over all of that, there was one staff who actually
One
said,
staff.
hey, this is not good enough.
Yeah. This is not
And
on.
and through that one contact, exposed everything.
And that's the world that we live in. We only see the tip of the iceberg. Not everyone puts a complaint in or blows the whistle. Um, and so we need to kind of respond to a lot of our incidents with the kind of the presumption that there may be a lot more to this than kind of just this one person's case of this issue. Um, it's a hard thing to deal with. I mean, you can only have so much surveillance over a premise, um, or the general community, in certain areas, but at least food regulation has some meat behind it and has some powers available to kind of deal with these issues. You kind of got environmental health officers kind of upholding kind of health and well-being where all of these where the existing systems kind of fall over, just calling out issues as they are, is because it's just wrong. It was just totally wrong.
And just to finish with the whistleblower, never
Mm,
identified. So,
never.
and
We
everything we did was to basically go, hey, we've got another excuse to be here.
Yeah.
And it all just went from there.
Yeah, that's right. And it's that's the practice with every council or the food authority. You don't reveal who the complainant is. Their identity is protected, rather regardless of if they say they put their request in anonymously or if they have a name associated with it. Quite frankly, I prefer if they put a name and a number associated with it if I need to get more information off them. But we never, ever, ever would say who lodged a request. And
Yeah.
so that their identity is protected. They're doing that. They're putting their request in, because it's in the public interest.
Yes. And so now we've basically identified the building's not fit for purpose. The restaurants have got problems.
Yep.
How many restaurants had to close their doors? Um,
I don't think. I think maybe one or two of them might have closed for that night of the incident, just so that they could deal with what was going on. Most of them were up and operating the next day, except for the Yamcha place. The owner of that decided that that was that, and we're shutting shop. We're not going to trade here anymore. It was the straw that broke the camel's back for them.
and this was, if it's the place that I'm thinking of, quite a large
A
yumcha.
very large chain. A number of these businesses were large chains. They weren't small operators. Some of them were, but a lot of them were big franchisees.
So how many of the restaurants were given a fine?
Uh, so a number of the restaurants got fines. Fines were issued to the Thai, the Greek from memory, the Thai got quite a few penalties. But that was also because they had the meat issue storage. And through consultation with our legal, we opted to just go straight to prosecution for the Yamcha.
Yes.
But quite frustratingly, the Yamcha engaged a barrister, and then had a discussion without our involvement with council's legal department, and our legal department, without consultation with us, decided to settle outside of court, which was very frustrating, because they were by far the worst, and it was by far the most negligent, just based on the conditions within there. But they closed shop, business gone, no longer trading in that location.
Yes. So it is an interesting one in terms of, here's a fault, and you're going, but what should be the retribution or the punishment for it? And,
Yeah.
to have the business fold is a strong consequence.
Mm.
But it's also on the back of, mate, they had dead rats
Yeah,
in
it
their
was
food
bad.
storage
Yeah.
there. But the big one, the centre,
Yeah.
what happened there?
So we had pushed to have orders issued on the centre around unhealthy conditions, for them to do what they need to do for pest control. The management did not want to do that. And so we worked very closely with them, and thankfully they were very proactive in kind of resolving the issue, and so they should be. They had they had engaged a company to kind of oversee the eradication in this area, and they did a lot of baiting, a lot of pest control, to get rid of them. But what we found is, for the next year and a half, um, we were getting kind of rat populations across the surrounding area, and in different sections of the centre. So they were getting mostly eradication in some areas, but there were small populations that were just moving elsewhere, and setting up in new locations. And so they were playing a kind of a game of whack-a-mole, where they'd hit one out, and then another one would spring up, and then they'd hit that. And so it was just this constant, like, back and forth with the centre, trying to get them to do more treatment in additional areas. And another thing that we did, as a department, off the back of this, is that we decided that given that we're getting these outbreaks, and given what occurred, um, that we just wanted to go through all of the storage areas of every single food business as a blitz. And so we just rounded up pretty much all the officers in the office. We just all came in. We all had a number of food businesses, whether they'd been inspected or not. Just goes, right, we're looking at your storage area, and we'd go through their storage area, and say, this is what's happening. You need to protect your food, even if what you're doing is very low risk. There's a substantial kind of outbreak going on, so you need to make sure everything's protected. We had discussions with centre management as well around appropriate fit out of food storage area, and as a part of that, the centre management gradually rolled out kind of properly built food storage areas throughout the whole centre. So you couldn't have this issue where the actual built form was contributing to the issue anymore.
So at that stage, are they in breach of, is there a building code or something that says this is what's required? Or
Um, I don't think we got as far as consent around this, because we were very much an incident response, trying to resolve it that way. And the centres, I don't know if you've looked at like a large shopping centre's files on council systems. There's just thousands of documents. But yes, there is a standard for food storage areas within AS 4674. I'm not too sure about the BCA, but I believe from what we did, that this was intended to be a storage area, but probably not a food storage area. Um, yeah, we can make an
yeah,
extra bit of money by leasing out not only a tenancy, but also a storage cage, because the cages were under separate leases to the tenancies. So they were
Okay.
getting more money by having these storage areas.
And arguably, centre management could say, "Hey, we didn't know what they were storing under there," and try and turn a
It's a pretty
blind eye.
it's a pretty weak argument. I think that was when the executive of the centre came down. I think that's the first time that they had been down there, um, and they were definitely shocked about the conditions. So whether or not it was just kind of absorbed into operation and the executive weren't aware, definitely
Yes.
not right.
Yeah. So, any penalty to the centre in the end?
No, no penalty to the centre.
Oh,
Even if we had issued an order under the Local Government Act, the penalties are so insignificant. I think it's like 330 for a breach of order. It's nothing.
wow. So, if someone had died, food
Mm,
poisoning,
yeah,
what would have happened then in terms of centre management at that stage would have been front and
yeah,
centre?
yeah. Surely they'd have some liability around the lease of appropriate facilities. So there's requirements of a food business to ensure that they're storing things adequately and it's not going to be contaminated. It's not going to harbour pests. Um, but they don't have any control over the walls, floors, ceiling. That's generally the centre that would manage that and be responsible for that. So I would say that it would be a lengthy court battle as to
Yeah.
who's responsible. Maybe a Mexican standoff.
Yes, and just hope everyone gets off with the next person being the one responsible.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
so, so in the end, it's unfit for purpose.
mm.
Looking in on it, centre management is just so at fault for
Oh,
making something that's not fit for purpose
yeah,
and
yeah.
making a buck from it. But
And
then at the
leasing
same
it to
time,
food businesses. Of course, they're going to
yeah,
use it for food storage.
and then every single restaurant is at fault, and one of them goes under because of it. Others get hit with a fine.
Yeah,
Yeah,
multiple times. Yeah,
and then for the next, it was months and months to get rid of
mm.
the rats.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
I guess that's a good place to finish. In hindsight, um, could the rat management have been done better? Is there a point at which you go, it needs to be properly managed or managed differently?
I think there should have been better management practices in place before this happened, and if there were appropriate management structures around rodents for such a large centre, I don't think it would have got to that stage. Um, Given as an incident response based on kind of what had already happened, I think it was managed quite well. I think a lot of resources were poured into pest control, but prevention is always better than um, what's the word for it?
Prevention's better than cure.
That's the one. There we
Yeah.
go. Um, yeah, it would have been unreal if this had been picked up through kind of a routine centre-wide pest surveillance, but it wasn't, and it was just let to kind of overtake. And then you just got to do the best that you can. I don't think that they could have done any more um, pest control for this rear area outside of what they did. Um, it just should never have been like that in the first place. But I mean, it happened. So
Yeah.
ifs and buts.
Okay. So, um, in hindsight, you then did a massive blitz on every food outlet saying, hey,
Yep,
what's happening with storage? So,
yep.
storage has suddenly risen in terms
Priority, yeah.
of priority. Any other changes, or in hindsight, any thoughts?
Um, yeah, I
Tips
think
for
we
other
managed it.
EHOs.
Yeah, I think it's the issue is you as an EHO, you're kind of finding yourself in the middle, and everyone's kind of pointing at you for the answers, and you kind of have stakeholders that you're directing. You have stakeholders that you're kind of providing information to, and you have stakeholders where you're putting like things that you want to do, like your management or a centre, and you're saying I want to do this, or the legal department I want to do this, and you're not getting the support there. So you kind of find you find yourself in the middle, of everyone, and everyone's kind of looking you for advice and support and to be the expert. So I think based on the level of training of my senior, we were covered in that regard. But if it was just me at that stage of my career, that would have been really, really hard. And it was great to learn. It was a fantastic lesson in kind of engaging with people and finding solutions to problems, and kind of being kind of a center source of information, um, source of direction, and source of kind of truth around a specific issue. It's amazing what environmental health officers do, and kind of the breadth of work that we do and the expertise that we hold. Um, it's just nothing short of fantastic. And
Yeah,
maybe that's why I love the industry so much, and the people that work within it. Like it's just, you can't find a better group of people.
yeah. And yeah, we focused on the problem, but I guess the true outcome of this is we've now got a major shopping centre that is safe to eat at, doesn't
Yep.
have rat problem. You've got all these restaurants that are now safe. One
Yep.
of them did go under, but all the rest are now continuing to trade and continuing to do great
Yeah.
new stuff. And so that's the true outcome is we can focus on the problem, but really the end result is
The end
uh,
result was
a,
was
a
really good.
safe shopping centre. And so
Yeah.
so that's the difference that being the EHO makes. It's
Yeah.
not about catching the baddie; it's about
It's
making
about
goodies.
that's right. It's about the outcome, and it was a good outcome at the end. Um, One of my favorite sayings is "light's the best disinfectant," and it just the light that was brought to the issue resolved what was
Yeah.
historically an issue, because people became aware of it. And it's kind of that education part that we play in. Um, yeah, it's very interesting because I always think about what would have happened if the media got hold of it, or if there'd been more attention from the community around it, because this was really the only people that knew about this issue was um, council workers, the EHOs, the centre management, and the businesses that were affected. The general public didn't know what was going on. They had
Yes.
no idea of the extent of the outbreak and the infestation that was occurring. And as far as they're concerned, it was just going about their daily business, nothing
Yes.
nothing unordinary. So you kind of find yourself like the nobody knows at what you've done, but you know that you've done the right thing for the community and you've protected them. But still, people don't know what an environmental health officer is.
Yes.
Um, it's a hard one.
Yeah, because the alternative would have been the guy pulled out his phone, took a video, and then
Mm,
posted it on Facebook,
yeah,
and that would have just totally destroyed half a dozen businesses.
yeah, it would
Um,
have.
so as much as you're the tough guy stepping in and saying, "Hey, we need to do this," the
Mm,
truth is, an EHO is a damn sight better than Facebook
yeah.
suddenly exposing a problem.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because we're going to do it in consultation with the business. We're going to engage with the people that need to know about it. We're not going to send the message out to the world to say, "Hey, look at this issue that we found." We're going to be quite discreet about it because we're not only regulating businesses, we're also educating and supporting them as much as we can.
Yeah, I think that's a great place to finish. So yeah, no, thank you for the story, and hopefully those listening in have uh, found some great tips on the way through. So yeah, the Pied Piper. Thank you very much for watching, for listening. This is where I'm meant to do something obscure like go and just subscribe down below. And we've already got the next couple episodes planned for some really great stuff. And yeah, thanks a lot, Max. That was really, really good.
No problem. Thanks for having me.